Hi everyone, it's Becca, and today I'm back on behalf of Wild Orchid Crafts, the Wild Bunch, to share another project with you guys, so I hope you enjoy. Right, so to make this cushion, I'm going to be using a craft mat, scissors, a cushion filler. I've also got some fabric, and I have already transferred an image to this fabric, and I have a tutorial on how to do that, so I'll link it below. I've also got some laces and some Chinese braid. I'm going to be using some of these satin flowers, some pearl beads, some seam binding. I will also be using some of this hemming web, a needle and some cotton thread, some Tim Holtz Distress Stain, some water, an iron, a ruler, and a pencil. All of the products from Wild Orchid Crafts used on this video, I will have the links below so that you guys can go and check it out from the Wild Orchid Crafts website. So first thing I'm going to do on my craft mat, I'm going to take my satin flowers and I'm going to ink it up with some Distress Stain and some water. I'm just adding my stain to the craft mat and then adding some water to that. And I then just place my flower over it. And because it's a fabric flower, it will absorb that coloring. Next, I'm going to take my cushion filler and I'm going to measure my fabric around it. I will then use my ruler to measure around this design and just to make sure that the fold on the fabric is straight. Once I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and just crease that line, and I'm going to be using my iron for that. And you can go ahead and trim any excess fabric if you need to. Next, I'm going to turn my fabric around and I'm going to crease what eventually will be the hem of this cushion. So I'm going to go ahead and crease that with my iron as well. And I'm folding this at about 1/2 inch. And you can go ahead and trim excess if you need to as well. Now I'm going to take my laces and I'm going to start placing this around my design just to decide how I want to position this before I start adhering everything in place. Once I'm happy with that, I'll go ahead and just lift my laces and just make a little tick mark with my pencil. And I'll measure with my ruler and draw a square all the way around that design. That way I know where to place my first bit of lace. Next, I'm going to take my hemming web. And you can go ahead and trim this to place. I actually cut this in half and I've cut a very long strip. I'm going to then position this over that pencil line. Then I'll place my lace on top of that hemming web. And because these laces are very delicate, I'm going to be using a spare piece of fabric to place over that so that I don't burn my lace with the iron. And then I'll go ahead and use my iron. And these hemming webs, they usually have the instructions on the back. So just be sure to check the manufacturer's instructions on how long you need to iron this for. It may vary depending on the branding that you buy. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that for the lace all the way around. And here I'm just doing the corner. I basically just turned my hemming web and placed my lace over top and then the fabric on top of that again. And I gathered it a little bit on the corners just so that it doesn't look very tight. And here I'm just showing you how I finished that off. So I cut out the hemming web a little bit longer than the fabric. I then folded the hemming web on top of the fabric, and then I folded that end in, so that way it will adhere the fabric in place, just the way you position it. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for all of the laces. I'm just going to be layering them around. And when I finish that, I'm going to turn my fabric around and I'm going to be creating the hem of the cushion. So as you can see here, I'm just placing some of that same hemming web in between the fabric and ironing over that. And that again is just going to give me a more polished look. Then I'm going to be folding my fabric inside out. I'll fold over the top section of the fabric first. And then I'll place a small piece of the hemming web in between that fabric. Then I'll iron over it. And my hemming web in particular tells me to iron over the fabric for about 15 to 20 seconds, depending on the branding that you purchase. I'll then go ahead and fold over the other side of the cushion and do the same thing. And once you've done that on both sides of the cushion, you can go ahead and turn this cushion around, and you will then have your cushion cover complete. Now I decided to decorate mine, so I'm going to be using my fabric flowers that I had colored previously. I'm using some of these white pearl stamens from Wild Orchid Crafts to add some center to that flower. And the way I did that is I just folded that all together and threaded through the hole in the center. I then stitched that on the back of the flower so that it stays in place. And I did that for all 3 flowers that I'm using. I then decided to use this larger flower on the bottom corner here. And this is just a flower I made with some leftover from the fabric. And I just cut out a long piece of various colors of seam binding. And I folded that in half and stitched that onto the corner of the cushion. And I then placed the flower on top of that. I then decided to create another tassel to go on the top corner of the cushion. So I just did that in the same way as before. And I added one of my flowers on top of that as well. And once you're happy with all of your embellishments on your cushion, you can go ahead and add your cushion filler, and your cushion is complete. I really like how this turned out. It's just so romantic and beautiful. So I hope you guys like it too. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. Bye!